Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and it's Sunday, so it's time to cover some CGC-graded comic books that sold on eBay. I've got some Star Wars books, of course, but I also have some other books that either I would love to have, or books that are interesting, or you don't see very often, or maybe books that we do see a lot and just wanted to kind of get an update on prices. So I try to do this every Sunday. If you are only a comic book collector, you might want to subscribe and just check out my Sunday videos. I usually do it every Sunday. Sometimes I miss, depends on when I'm traveling and things, but a lot of really good books here. We're going to start off with Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 8. This is the direct edition, the origin of the alien symbiote that becomes Venom. This is a 9.8 white pager, and I always say this, you don't have to agree with me on this, but it's okay to get one in a direct edition if that's what you want. There's just so many of them out there that I feel like for this particular book, there's a few of them like that, and we got another one coming up in a little while. This particular book, I would always recommend getting a newsstand. That would be my recommendation if you are looking at it from a rarity perspective. If you don't particularly care, you just want to have a 9.8, then yeah, go ahead, get a direct edition. But these have been hovering around $500. This one sold for $500. I have seen them go for less in an auction, as low as $425. It might have even gotten into the threes at one point, but I feel like $425 to $450 is a pretty safe number to bid if you are looking for Secret Wars number 8. Here is ASM 316. This is a book that I have and I like. I would love to get it at a newsstand. This direct edition sold for $429, which is up a little bit. This one kind of hovered around $375, $400 for a while, but admittedly, this was a buy it now. The price is always going to be higher on a buy it now unless it's a make an offer. Look for the auction on this book if you're looking for one in a direct edition. Newsstand, it's a little tougher to find. As you can see here, this is a newsstand edition for the same book, and it sold at $1,700, which I would not personally recommend paying that. I think you can get it for less than that. I think that a more realistic number, if you're patient and scour the different comic book auction houses like Comic Link and Heritage and wherever else, I bet you can find a 9.8 newsstand for ASM 316 in an auction and get it for $1,100 to $1,200. Maybe top end $1,400 would be my number. $1,700, I would not pay that personally, but that's a book that I would love to have in a newsstand. So they don't come up that often though. Here's another one that I would recommend getting in a newsstand if you're going to get it, because again, there are so many of them in the direct edition and in the newsstand, quite honestly. But this is the first full appearance of Carnage, ASM 361. Great iconic cover by Mark Bagley. And I do have this one in a 9.8 newsstand. This one has the old case and sold for $385, which that is low. That's a low number. This would be a good candidate to send in to get reholdered with a new label. But yeah, $385 for that book in a newsstand that's one of the lower prices I've seen here recently. Some Batman books I wanted to talk about. Here is a newsstand for Batman 357. For some reason, even though it's 1983, you would think there'd be plenty of these newsstands floating about, but they just, no pun intended with that cover, but you don't really see Batman 357 in a newsstand all that much. It's just typically in a direct edition. This is the first appearance of Jason Todd and the second cameo appearance of Killer Croc. So it's got the first appearance of a hero and the first appearance of one of the main villains from the Batman universe. Great cover too, although it's a shame that Killer Croc's not on the cover. But this newsstand was off-white pages, so keep that in mind with this price of $1,000. I'm thinking white pager, you're probably in that $1,100, maybe $1,200 ballpark. That would be my guess on it. A direct edition, I think I picked mine up in the direct edition for like $500, maybe even a little bit less than that. It might have been a little bit above $500. It was hovering around $800 for a while, and then it kept dipping, and I think I might have got it in the high fives, like $575 range. I think it was an Instagram transaction. Here's another one I have, Newstand Batman 497. This is where Bane breaks Batman's back. A pretty famous storyline, and obviously that was covered in the Christopher Nolan trilogy, and this one sold for $165 on 10 bids. That's a good deal for a newsstand from 1993. A little tougher to find in a newsstand, but not that hard. But to me, $165, there's worse ways to spend $165. I think that's a really good book to get in a newsstand for $165. And Batman Harley Quinn, pretty famous Alex Ross cover, pretty creepy cover. I've got this one. And this one sold for $400. This is the first Harley Quinn in DC Universe continuity. And we just covered this one in a recent video. It was like $375-ish. And so this one sold $400 or best offer. And that's kind of the hovering rate right now for that book. It's a great book. That's a really, really nice book. This is one I do not have. I would love to have it. This is the second print for Batman 608, a pretty famous cover from Jim Lee, and it's deceptively expensive for a modern book. It's from 2002, but it's still very, very pricey. And this is kind of the beginning of the Hush storyline. A lot of rumors floating about that Hush is going to be one of the main villains in the Matt Reeves' second Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. That is stuck in development hell, though. That may not happen. But anyway, this second print sold for $725, which is actually down, believe it or not. I mean, this book, you might, I think in an auction, you might be able to get it in the sixes, 625, 650, somewhere in there. But buy it now. $725 is actually still really low relative to where this book was selling even, maybe 6 months ago. Another one that I don't have is the first comic book appearance of Terry McGinnis, which is Batman Beyond. I love Batman Beyond. I think he's great. Most people don't care about Batman Beyond because people my age, we kind of grew up and we're adulting but by the time this cartoon was out. But I do love Batman Beyond. I really do. This one sold for $10.12, which is also way down from some of the comic book highs. But don't get this one confused with Batman Beyond No Number. It's like a one shot that is like maybe an origin story. It's the same cover almost, but it can be very easily mistaken for this book. And the Batman Beyond one shot, or maybe it's Batman number 0, Batman Beyond 0, I can't remember, but that one is like the origin, and it goes for like 40% of what this book goes for. So this is the one you want. This is the first comic book appearance of Terry McGinnis, and a great book, great cover. Interestingly, Captain America 230 keeps popping up. This is a book I really love. I just love the cover. It's not like a big key issue or anything. It's got a Hulk's obviously appearance, but it's just the fact that he's smashing Cap and Cap is protecting himself with a shield. I've always loved this cover. I just think it's a great cover. And it's from 1979. There's not a ton of 9.8s, but it's enough where you can get one. But 2 of these did sold. This was off-white to white pages and sold for $4.50. And then this was a white pager that sold for $5.95. So that gives you a price range depending on the page quality. But that's a great cover. I don't know. I've always loved that one. That's one I would love to have at some point. A couple of G.I. Joe number 1s that sold. First, the direct edition in an auction, $849. That's a good number to aim for. We've seen it here recently in these market updates. It'd be in the $975 range. So to get that in an auction for $850, I thought that was a pretty good deal there. And then the Newstand, terrible photos, old case style, sold for $1,200. I wouldn't pay that for an old case style version. And it wasn't perfectly wrapped. I mean, it had a little bit of a miswrap on it. So that feels a little high to me. I think if you want that Newstand, be patient, wait for clear photos, better photos, and try to aim for $1,100 if you can for the Newstand G.I. Joe number 1. This is one I would really like to get, and there's not a ton of these on the census, but every time they come up, I'm either not looking or I'm not buying or I get outbid. I bid on one of these on Heritage, and I just got obliterated. This was a while ago, back when this book was a lot more expensive, but I was bidding like $650 and it sold for like $900. I mean, it was pretty wild. This is Spawn number 230. This is an homage to Batman number 423, which is obviously also by Todd McFarlane. I would love to have this book to pair with my Batman 423. And again, I didn't look up the census count, but the last time I looked, it's not a ton of them. There's not a ton of these on the census. This is probably during the Spawn low point where a lot of these books were very low print, and but it's a great cover. Spawn number 230, an homage to Batman 423. So that one in an auction sold for $535. That still shows you how expensive. It's a 2013 book, and it's still very much in demand from collectors, and I understand why, because Todd McFarlane did both Batman 423 and this book, and it's the Batman 423 is considered like the prototype Spawn. It's like what was in Todd McFarlane's mind as he was designing Spawn, and obviously Spawn came out after Batman 423, but he revisited with this cover, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful cover. I love it. So $535 on that one. That's one I would love to get at some point. Some Star Wars books finally for you guys. 9/8 white pager Star Wars #1 sold for $2,800 in a buy it now. We've seen this book get down into the $2,500 range. Crazy enough, another one sold from Reese's Rare Comics for $3,030. That's a big number. And you could have gone, they bought it on eBay. You could have gone to Reese's Rare Comics website and got 10% off of that. So $2,700. So to me, that's the right number, is $2,500 to $2,700. Ideally on the lower end of that for Star Wars #1 in a 9/8 with white pages. Star Wars #2, which is obviously the first interior comic book appearance of Obi-Wan, Chewbacca, and Han Solo. I don't have this one yet, but this one was listed for $1,400. I tried to look it up on 130point.com, but it says not available. So it wouldn't show you what the final sales price was. But I'm guessing around $1,100 would be my number for this particular book in a 9/8 with white pages. That's kind of the target price. This was another great deal. Data 4 is a pretty well-known Star Wars comic book slab seller, and he had yet another newsstand edition of Star Wars #42. This is like his third or fourth one, and freshly graded, beautiful colors on it. This was a really nice copy, and it was sold for $936. $936 is a great deal. We're getting really low now on this book, and I don't know why, but this book is out of favor right now. And during the Book of Boba Fett, this was a $5,500 book, and now you can get it for sub $1,000. Absolutely nuts. So I would love to pick that up in a newsstand. That's a good deal at $936. More modern Star Wars books before we talk about some other lines of books. This is the Free Comic Book Day for Clone Wars Adventures. Obviously, the first appearance of General Grievous in comics. 9/8 white pages, $170 on that. That's a good deal there. A lot lower than where this one is. This one kind of like $200, $225, but $170 is now the going rate for Clone Wars Adventures Free Comic Book Day. This is another interesting one. This was a GameStop edition of Star Wars #1 from 2015. I've always liked this cover. It's kind of like a war poster, like the rebels need you. The Force is with you. It's kind of like a old school World War II poster. And I believe they had one for the Empire as well. But this is a great looking cover, really great cover. And it's a GameStop edition, so it's low census count in a 9/8. Most of them got beat up, most likely. So that one sold for $200. I can understand that. That feels like a book I'd pay that kind of money for. It just looks good. I didn't look up the census count, but I bet there's not a ton. But that's just a great looking cover. Great looking modern cover. Non-Star Wars books, we've got a couple of newsstand editions of New Mutants 98 that sold. Really nice book. This is one I would love to get. First appearance of Deadpool, $24.20 on that one, and then another copy sold for $28.50. So that's a huge price disparity for two buy it nows. Both of them newsstand editions for New Mutants 98, but that gives you a range. But to me, I don't think I'd spend $28.50 right now. That's kind of the old number. That's the old number before prices came back down a little bit. I would argue even in a auction, it wouldn't touch $2,400. I don't even think it would touch $2,200. I think in an auction, $2,100. That would be the number I'd aim for. Maybe even $2,000 if you're lucky. But I think that book's going to continue to come down. But man, that is a hot book. I love that book. Uncanny XMen #141 in a newsstand. This is one I do have, but not signed. I got two signed books here. We've got a Chris Claremont signed X-Men 141. This is the start of the Days of Future Past storyline. That one sold for $1,300. Big number there. To me, if you can get this unsigned in a 9.8 white pager. Aim for like 950, 975, somewhere in there, or less, And then finally, we had a Chris Claremont signed Uncanny XMen 221, the first appearance of Mr. Sinister. Great custom CGC label there. I love that label. That is hot. That is hot. And that one signed, sold for $349. X-Men 221 in a direct edition is like $200 or less right now. But with the Chris Claremont signature, they basically gave it about $150 premium. So great looking cover though. A great cover, great label. I just love everything about that book. That's nice. That is it for this edition of CGC Graded Comic Books on eBay. I hope you enjoyed the content. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.